Hello guys, I am Alim Karim, and today I'm going to present to you database first beyond the basics as fast as possible. Today we're going to start where we left off in our previous session. So prerequisites for this session: you have to know C#, object-oriented programming, and so on, and especially ASP.NET MVC. It's not a beginner session, and so on. So topics: we're going to solve the previous problem. We're going to create new problems and then solve it. We'll talk about the benefits of database first. We'll talk about database view concept and how to use it inside in our project, and we'll see how to create a simple stored procedure and benefits of it as well, and how to use that stored procedure in our project. All of these we'll try to cover as fast as possible. I have opened our previous project. If you want to see the database, you haven't changed from our last session. So we have these tables, we have these properties. If you see in our model, we have a problem referring to that if we change any context or anything, the model entity files or class files have been replaced or regenerated. So we have to come up with a solution. The solution is, first go to your properties and then change the update transformation related to false. That's your first thing. Next, what you should do is go any of the folder and then drag your files, and drag your files means drag the person, the classes that has been related to your work. Let's say this, and then make a folder, give a name that you like. Okay, so we have our files. Now if we try to include that folder, we'll be successful, but if you try to build it, you'll be failed. Now the next task is to delete those contexts. Now to check that if those are generated, you just drag and drop and save it. If those doesn't generate, that means you are fine. So let's build it. We have an error with sysdiagram tools, and to solve that problem, we're going to remove that sysdiagram from our entity. That's it. So let's try to build it again. Okay, so we're having another error, and if we just go to our context, this is our context. So here, if you just remove this one, so now if we build it again, we'll be successful. So let's try it in the browser. So here is the project where we left off. So we have successfully run from our custom code. So if you now add a property to your code, let's say display name, now if we rebuild it again, because we're running on without debugging, we'll see that in the first name, the name is going to be changed. First name is changed, last name is changed, and date of birth. So now if you add or change in the context like this, it's not going to replace your person. So that's it. You have your annotations with the database first approach, but you're not removing anything if you change on the model. So next thing is, let's say I add something to the database. So let me quickly add something to my database. So I'm in my SQL Server Management Studio. If I connect to the local DB version 11, I'll see my database here. So if I go into my database diagram and try to add a new field, let's say address, it should be varchar. I have seen developers always put nvarchar without knowing that what it does. So if you think about it, in maximum cases you do not want user to entry from Unicode characters. So if you don't want that, there is no need to have a nvarchar, because nvarchar is twice the size as varchar. So you should be careful about that. But if the client wants that you should be able to entry a Unicode character, then you should put nvarchar. So other than that, try to optimize it. So if I try to save it as a not null, so I'll be failed because the data will be not null and it will be complaining. So for simplicity, I'm going to choose the allow now. So it's a varchar. So if a varchar have a null, it will be only 2 bytes. But if you put one character, or let's say anything other than null in a varchar, it will be a 50 character size. So it should be, if you have a calculator, it should be like 50 into 8 bits, so 400 bits. And if you add a 2 byte pointer to it, so 2 means 16, so it should be 416 for this one address column. So you have to think about the sizes when you are designing databases. And I have seen the developers who try to develop with the code first, they don't think about those, and in the end result their database become very unoptimized, and the end result is very dangerous. So that's why I really want to point out. So these are the things that I think that a database designer could do in the design time to minimize the design errors. Okay, so now that I have my table updated, so let me add that table or property in my model context. If I just update it, you'll see the address is added. And now what you should do is add a property manually to this class. That's one way to go. But if you have more properties, let's say 10 or 12 or let's say 5, you don't want to write those manually. So what you want to do is get an advantage of automation. So you can have the automation from this add generated item. There you go to the data and select generator, database context generator, whatever you like, and then it's going to create some context as before, but this time you're going to copy paste the properties from the person to your person class. Just select and add that property in your person. So I'm in the person class. Now my job is to delete those 2D files, and these will remove the duplicate CS files, and now I'll be happy. So now you don't have the view generated, so you have to really manually add these things to the view. You have to do it if you're doing code first operation. It would be same. So there is nothing that we could robust the operation. So let's say in the create, we're going to add the field for our address. Okay, so done. So if we just build it, you'll see that there is an address column, but I want the address column to be multi-line, so I want a text area. So to do that, I just go to my address. So if I add a multi-line attribute, and if I build it again, and if I refresh it, you will see that I have a multi-line property. So far we're getting the best of both worlds. We're getting the feature of code first, and we're having the fun of database first designing, where we could rapidly design many databases. But one of the difference between the database first and code first is you could actually work with the production data. So let's say you have application running for 5 years, and the client wants you to design that application from what they have. And one of the fun functionality, or one of the benefits you could get from the database first, is this. And another one about the database first is that you cannot use views, database views, with code first. That's a dead end. But you could use views easily as tables from database first approach, and the stored procedure calling is very easy. However, you can still call stored procedures from code first approach, but if I show you the approach now, it will be much more easier, and you'll see that how easy it is. Before moving on to the stored procedure, I'm going to show you how to create a view first. So right click on the views and click on new view, and then select the tables that you want to display. So in my case, I want to display the employee as the person and a combination of designation, something like that. So next thing, you should know that what's the upsides and downsides of view. So for the upsides, it makes your codes clean. And clean means that in a SQL query, if you want to join these three, you have to include in the link something like that. It's cleaner, but you have to write it on, and in the link they have to join it programmatically, and search goes, and they have to search in the object model and then add those items together. So it's very costly. One of the great thing of running the code inside the database, it's that it's very fast, and it's fast because it's ACID compliant. So A for atomic, C for consistency, and I for isolation, and that's a property that makes the database very efficient and very fast. Isolated means that let's say I'm really running let's say 10 operations on a database, and isolation means none of those really depend on one another. If they don't depend on one another, they do not make each other slow. So that's the best part of the database. But if you're running, but there is no magic, but still database programming is a lot more faster than your traditional programming, C# programming, or your PHP programming. So try to run the code inside the database. You will have better results. So the downside is also important. So the downside is that if you run a code inside the database, you cannot really go and modify in next or check out the errors because it's inside the database. So error detection is hard. So you'll be fine unless you are not removing any column or changing any column name. So unless you do that, error detection will not be a problem. Another problem that you might run into when you are using views, that sometimes your entity model do not add the view if you do not have a primary key. So that's a downside from entity framework, but it still exists. So let me show you how you can get all the designated things that you want, all the desired things that you want. So I'm going to use the all from the employee because I want all the employees' information. Plus, what I want is first name, last name, date of birth, and address. And from the designation, I want those as well. So if I just view it, you will find that I have these column and values from all of those tables, so which is very much robust than using the include inside the link or inside the C#. So let me save that. I try to have a convention name where I could find my views with the view name, because view will be act as a table. So inside the entity framework, should go to entity model and use the update database, and this time select this view. So if you have multiple views, it will add it. So again, to have the best results, add the code generation. Now it's a table that is added, so you have to directly copy paste the class file to your folder and then include that inside the project, and then add the class name inside your context. Those three things you have to do if you create a new table. That's it. So now if I want to see the employees in the employees, so if I go to the employees, you'll see that I have a view like this where I don't have any last name or addresses of the employee. So let's say I want to see those. So what I can do is use the link, and for that purpose I'm going to use my view employee controller. Inside the employee controller, I'm going to remove those. Okay, so I forgot to really remove the TT files. So if you do not remove the TT files, you'll have error inside your code. Remove those, try to build it, and it'll be fine. So now I really want to remove those include, and instead of the include, what I really want is use the my view. Once you use the views, once you change the model type, you have to change the model type inside your view as well. So this time our all view should be entity model dot view employee. So we have to do it for all the three things. So let's say I want to improve only the index view. So inside the index, Let me add a few more properties. But there is a downside that if you're using this type of things and there is no record, you will be having an error. To solve that, what you can do is write an if-else statement. For the whole table, you have test, so there is a less chance that you'll fail. So it's a method. Let's say we want to display other fields like address. This one should be address. This one should be designation. Okay, so inside that, yeah, you have the entity employees name. However, if you want to edit the person name from the person field, you could use like this. You could really make HTML link and in the edit we also want to have some route values. Controller name, route values. Next thing we want to know this one. So in here we want to give a person ID and we don't want this display. That's it. So if we again build it, so here I am inside my employees index. So if I click on the first name, I'll see an error because we haven't named it as people, we named it as a person. But if you see the controller, it's people, so that's a mistake. So let me just solve it very quick. It should be people. We save it and refresh the page. If you go to the link, you'll see that it's people. If you click on it, you can edit it now. So let's say it's David 2, something like that. We can exactly see that our names has been really replaced very quickly. So that's how you can maintain your database first application. So another thing that you could really do is make a stored procedure, and another problem could arise. Let's say I add a table, that's a new table, but I'm adding some relationships. So my new table should be new table ID. So we have the relation now. So since we updated database, let me update the model. If you update it, you have to add the table, not just diagram. Okay, so table is added, the relationships should be modified as well. So if I add a generated code, you will see that I have TT files, and inside that, if I just go, I will see that there is a new table class. So add that class, but this time the problem is that we have added some relationships. So if you just go to the person, you will see that a new table information has been added. So first what you should do is copy that new table information inside your person, that's the first thing, and the next thing, add this new table, new information inside your person constructor. So since you're done, just remove those, and let's say I add that table. So after adding that, you should build successful. After you have a successful build, the first thing you should try is creating a controller. Any controller will do the effect. If you can successfully make any controller, that means that whatever changes you made so far after the entity changes is synced with your custom changes. So let me just create a new controller. So I'm successful. That means whatever changes I made with my custom modification in those classes are synced with my model. However, if you fail to generate, you should check the steps that I did and what you did wrong, or if you have any questions, you could still email me with your screenshot that whatever you are doing, I'll be very helpful and I will get back to you. And another thing, if you are failed to generate because of the view, because sometimes it complains that view doesn't have any key. If that happens, then add a manual key with your any column which is unique. So employee name would be unique here. So that's it. So now we're going to test our stored procedure thing. So how we could import a stored procedure from SQL Server or the database to our code. To do that, I am here in my database with SQL Server Management Studio. Go to programmatic and then create a new stored procedure. So when you click on the create, you will have a template like this. To modify the template, what you should do is Control Shift and M. So here the key is also written Control Shift and M. So if you do that, you have an option like that. So write your name, date, and so on. So our procedure would be, let's say, test employees view, something like that. So parameter name, this one should be the parameter name. So it should be search for employee. Let's say varchar 30. So the type should be same as your employee name, or else it will complain that it cannot compare or something like that. So data types should be same. So it's 30, it should be 30 as well. Okay, so let me write a simple query. However, note that this query doesn't affect if you run it from a stored procedure or you write it from, let's say, entity framework. The difference will make when you have a query like this. Let's say you have 1 million data and you load those 1 million data using, let's say, entity framework. So these 1 million data become 1 million entity objects. There is a conversion cost, right? From the database, it's converting to objects, means your classes, person classes, and so on, and lists. So there is a huge memory cost, and then you process it, and then save it back to the database. In this process, there will be a huge difference if you use the stored procedure. So if you have 1 million data and if you use stored procedure, you have to use cursor. The idea is cursor. So if you have something to do with it, you Google for cursor, or if you can't find it, email me, I will get back to you. So there is something called cursor. Cursor is, let's say, 10 times slower than a regular select query. That's fine. That process may be you can guess that that's 500 times slower than this process. So cursor is 10 times slower than a regular select query inside database, but it's still faster than what you are going to do with the entity framework or something like that. So what you could do, use cursor, select your data and process it and save it inside the database. It will be huge fast. Trust me. Okay, so we're here to make a simple query. So let's say we're selecting from view, employee view, and we're selecting based on the first name. First name, let's say like. It's not the best query ever written, but I think for the demo purposes it will work. So something like that I've written. So if now I save it, execute it. If I now refresh inside my stored procedure, I'll have a stored procedure. So now if I try to run the stored procedure, I go there and go to the execute, and if I parameter 2 should be removed. Okay, so it should not be saved, so you have to write alter and execute. Now if you just go to execute, if you write, let's say, David, you'll see that one result is return. So there is another thing when you run a stored procedure, that it returns a return value. So most of the time when we query some complex data, and the most developers return a single value. So let's say you got a top query, let's say you did a top query where every result will be single. So what you could do, if you have multiple variables, you could write those variable names with your column name. So those variable names will get your column name values. The idea is, let's say you have a return result, let's say it's a number and we're saying it that it's 1. So execute it. So if I now execute it again, let's say with David, I will have a return value of 1. That's fine. But in entity framework generating method, you will see also a return value type. But if you use that return value to expect some results, you will be very frustrated because it doesn't return any value inside the entity framework model. So if you use the entity model generator and generate that stored procedure from this query, and if you're expecting that return value, you will be really amazed that you didn't get it. So the idea is, if you have to return some value, what you can do, you use the select again. So whatever the last select statement is, you will get it. So what you can do is, let's say I'm getting 1, so you could really name it as return custom value or whatever. Return value will be as fine. So whatever you name it, let's say I have altered the query and let's execute it with David, and as you can see that the regular return result is 0, but return custom is 1. So when you are dealing with entity framework model generating, you should always use something like that select statement. Otherwise, you'll not get the expected result. So for our case, we just want this entity result return. So I'm inside Visual Studio in my model, entity model. So here you click on the update from database, and inside that, if you go, you'll see the stored procedure that we have just created. So hit on finish. Now if you just click on properties, you'll see inside the model there is a stored procedure called test employees, and at the same time it also creates a function and also create a type, complex type called test employee result. You could really change that by going to by clicking on the function import. You could really change that, but I suggest you not to. If you want, you could change the name, or you could also really see the complex type, that what it is or what it's going to return. You could also create a new one if you like, but I suggest whatever it is, keep it as it is. It's the best one. Now if you just right click and select add code generation and select EF6, create a database context from T4 templating, we'll see that there is a test employee view result. To get that, we'll go inside and we'll copy and paste it inside this folder. Now the next things are very simple. You have to go through the context and add the context method. Since you are using a stored procedure, it will create a method, and copy that method inside your context. That's it. So there will be no let's say join like this. There will be a method. So now the step is delete those. So we're done, but we have to import that in our project. So now what we want to do is go to new table, controller, new table, and rather than displaying the new table result, we're going to show the stored procedure result. So it will expect for a person to search for, let's say David. So now we have to modify our views or views model information to display those data. So I will do for the one, and you will try the rest as your assignment. So inside the new, I'm going to pause the video and modify the index CSHTML. So I have changed the model from test view result and add the first name only. Let's say add the last name as well. You could do really very complex things with a stored procedure, and it's very fast, as we have told. So let me just show you the view in the browser. So if I go to the new tables / index or new tables only, I'll see that the David is here. So let's say we add another employee. Let's add an employee. First we have to add a people or person. So let's say the person is also David2, last name is David something, 111 address, something like that. So let's next thing, add an employee. So David2 manager, something like that. Save. So we have 2 Davids. So if I go to new table, I'll see 2 Davids. So that's it. So far we have got into many problems, not only one, and finally we have came up with solutions for this problems, and you have seen many steps to change the database. And to ease your pain, we're currently making a product, because we make products for developers, and the product name is EFSync. Our developers are working with it, so if you think we are cool, you could also join us. It's free and it's going to be open source. And if you have any question or any feedback, you could mail me alim@developers-organism.com. If you want to get any quotation about any product, you could get it info@developers-organism.com. If you think we're cool and if you want to contribute with us, then you could send your resume jobs@developers-organism.com. If you like our work, you could go to fb.com/developersorganism and give a thumbs up to our page. This video is sponsored by our group. You can find the link here. If you click here, you could go to the group page and join us to stay tuned. If you like this video, hit a thumbs up. If you don't like it, give a thumbs down, but don't forget to subscribe. Thank you.